I'm gonna try and be as professional as I can for as long as I can when I say TRON Ares is one of the worst movies of 2025, and I'm not being hyperbolic. This is a masterclass in how to take an established franchise and turn it into something so fundamentally broken that you start questioning whether anyone involved actually watched the film. But here's what makes this fascinating. The film spent 15 years in development hell, started as a direct sequel called TRON Ascension, got completely reimagined as Ares, carried a massive $180 million budget, and made only 140 worldwide. It didn't even make back its own production budget, let alone turn a profit with the marketing budget included. It's laughably bad. So the question I keep asking myself isn't just why is this so bad, but why did anyone think this franchise needed to continue when neither the original nor the legacy ever actually hit the industry standard for profitability? First, let's establish some context. TRON Ares is the third installment in following the 1982 original and the TRON Legacy from 2010. Neither of those films achieved the industry standard of 2.5 times the budget threshold for profitability, making Ares a continuation of the franchise's commercial struggles. The original barely broke even. The Legacy made 400 million worldwide, which is still insane, but was still considered a disappointment by Disney standard, which is even crazier. And now Ares, directed by Joachim Rønning, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, whose previous work includes the Oscar-nominated Kon-Tiki and Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man Tell No Tales, and they somehow cost even more and made even less. The plot centers around the Permanence Code, a MacGuffin that allows digital entities to exist indefinitely in the physical world. Without it, digital beings like Ares dissolve after exactly 29 minutes in the real world. The antagonist is Julian Dillinger, played by Evan Peters, who is the grandson of Ed Dillinger, the original villain from 1982. Julian wants the code for military super soldiers and weaponry. The twist is that Ares, our protagonist, played by Jared Leto, was actually created by Julian himself, blah blah blah. Kevin Flynn reveals that the code should have been named the Permanence Code because granting a program the ability to live in the real world also grants them mortality and the ability to truly die and make their experiences meaningful and fragile, because this isn't something that has been touched on before. And from the technical standpoint, this should have been a gorgeous film. It was shot by Jeff Cronenweth, something like that, the acclaimed cinematographer who shot Fight Club. Rønning employed wide steady cam shots and selective shadow focus, drawing visuals parallels to Stanley Kubrick's precise compositions. He conceptualized the new light cycles not just as fictional vehicles, but as equivalent to Formula One cars, emphasizing speed and advanced aesthetic design. There's even a section where Ares enters part of the grid that still looks exactly like the original 1982 grid with the old school digital effects, where he encounters the character Bit and rides the original era light cycle, which is just the most on-the-nose nostalgic bait you could possibly get. The score was composed by 9 Inch Nails, and it's defined by abrasive, industrial, distorted noises, and it sounds much closer to their album releases than a traditional film score. The sound mix was so overwhelmingly loud and industrial in some IMAX screenings that at least one audience member requested the staff to turn down the volume. And look, I get the love for 9 Inch Nails. They have some boner jammers on their own, but when they're placed incorrectly into scenes and it creates this tonal whiplash that rips you out of the movie, it does lend me to question their ability to be composers in a film. There is a very wide difference between musical characteristics of traditional artists and then trying to then instantly relay that into something like a different medium as a film, where you want them to be much more an additive to a scene than the sole focus like traditional media. But first things first, the moment TRON Ares starts, you can feel something is fundamentally off. The film opens with Ares explaining everything through Arturo Castro's character, who was primarily relegated to just spoon-feeding the audience exposition rather than organically developing the plot, or at least showing us without it being so apparently bad. It's transparent to the point of being insulting. But what actually got to me was the film establishes that Ares remembers everything. He has continuity of memory, and that's explicitly stated. So why does he spend the first 30 minutes acting like he knows nothing about the world he's lived in forever? And it's just because the script needs him to be an audience surrogate asking the basic questions. The writer created a plot hole in their own character just to facilitate lazy exposition. Jared Leto's performance as Ares was criticized across the board as awkward and too inhuman even for the non-human character. There is a scene where Julian is described describing how Ares is literally the smartest thing to walk the earth and how he's the most dangerous battle soldier ever created. And mid-sentence, Jared Leto's Ares just walks away, looks outside, and says, looks like there's precipitation out there, as it's clearly raining. And then he turns back to the room full of world leaders and armed militaries who are supposed to be speechless and impressed by him recognizing rain. At one point, he randomly stops to say hi to kids on the street, and they love him for absolutely no reason. And that's mid-battle. He's mid-chasing someone for his life as the permanence code. And he's just, gotta do my quippy Marvel stopping to say hi to a pedestrian, and God, they love me. The directing is aggressively bad in ways that contradict even the technical talent involved. The film constantly zooms into people's eyes with perfectly reflected images of whatever they need to see or we need to see, completely killing any sense of subtlety. Despite Cronenwell's cinematography and Rønning's status backed by Kubrick's influences, the world building makes no sense. They make a huge deal about how they don't quite understand it or they don't really know the feeling of it, but then they have a whole action scene where they show code liquid in the other realm. Like in the actual light cycle realm, you can see liquid that they fall into as it braces their fall from a quite epic scenario. And that just looks like perfectly fine liquid, acted just the same. You just saw a little couple numbers and text in it. So it's like they couldn't even make up their mind about what was supposed to be important to this AI or to these artificial intelligences like rain as they tried to make it. And the ending is typical sequel franchise bait, and it's just infuriating to see at this point, because despite how profound you might think this concept is of the permanence and mortality given meaning to existence, the film ends with Ares having acquired the code, months later relaxing in a sun-drenched European cafe with a new mission. Oh wow. And it completely sacrifices the philosophical core for lazy sequel bait. They even have a post-credit scene hinting at the villain still being here. It's like, okay man, we don't care. From a craft standpoint, there are moments of just genuine incompetence. The driving sequences have CGI that look worse than video game graphics. There's visible clipping on light effects. There's an explosion of a knife for no narrative reason. And then in what feels like just an out of nowhere, hey look kids, we're hip, they then show an appearance of the TikTok star Bella Poarch. Hey look guys, take us seriously, we're a franchise. Don't laugh at us please. Tron Ares fails at writing, music placement, directing, acting, editing, and visual effects. For me personally, it's a 0 out of 10. I despise this film. When I say this is the worst movie of 2025, I comprehensively mean it in all the regards that I can think of. It represents everything wrong with modern franchise filmmaking, and this franchise has never been profitable by industry standards to begin with. Spent 15 years in development hell, cost $180 million, couldn't even make it back in the box office, let alone the amount they spent on the pure budget. The budgeting for this film was actually insane on the marketing side. They have entire released versions for whole theaters that have a whole stylized view of this Tron Ares thing. They really went all out on the marketing for this film. But what makes it truly tragic is that it's buried under all of the incompetence. Bottom line, I was just hoping for something like a creative spin on the Tron Ares thing that we've seen for a long time. I know as soon as most people see Jared Leto in that fucking trailer, they instantly check out. And while I might be guilty of that here and there, I really did want to give this one a try. I actually had a little bit of hope for it as like this neon style I can always get behind. Plus, you know, as a gamer myself, these video game movies don't exactly do too well. So it's nice to beat those expectations up once in a while. And my God, this is not the film to do it. This is probably one of the worst franchising attempts I've personally seen. And I cannot wait to see something else top this. I'm interested to see what other franchises you guys have seen try and get started and just never work. Please let me know in the comments because I genuinely want to watch them just to see how bad they are in comparison.